They say there are places in every town that don't quite belong to the living. Not houses, not graveyards, not abandoned buildings with sagging roofs and broken windows. Those are obvious. You can point to them and say, yes, that's haunted, or that's cursed. No, the truly dangerous places are the ordinary ones. A road. A room. A park bench. Ours is a bench. It sits in the oldest part of the town's park, where the lamps are dimmer, their light tinted yellow and buzzing with flies in summer, where the path winds between trees that were planted long before any of us were born. The bench itself is plain enough, wooden slats worn smooth by years of rain and sun, a frame of black painted iron that has started to flake and rust. If you walked by during the day, you'd never notice it. You'd never feel the need to. But after midnight, it changes. That's the story, anyway. The rule whispered to kids when they sneak out at night. The dare hissed at parties by someone whose courage comes in a can of beer. Don't sit on that bench after midnight. If you do, something will sit with you. And you won't get back up again. I grew up hearing it. You couldn't escape it, the bench was our town's bogeyman. Some said it dated back to before the park existed, that when the city paved the paths and put in the lamps, the workers left that patch alone because something was already there. Others said the gouges in the backrest were proof, 3 claw-like marks cut deep into the wood, too far apart for any animal. Too straight. Too deliberate. I didn't believe in it. Not really. But disbelief is a fragile thing, and curiosity is a terrible disease. The older I got, the more I felt it gnawing at me. All those warnings, all those stories, why shouldn't I prove them false? Why shouldn't I sit on that bench and show the world it was just a story, like the monster under the bed? It was late October when I decided. The air carried that brittle chill, the kind that makes leaves crunch sharper underfoot and smells faintly of smoke from chimneys. The town was quiet, tucked into itself, but my heart thudded with a strange anticipation as I walked the path alone. My backpack was heavy with a thermos of coffee, a notebook, and my phone, which I'd charged to full before leaving. If I was going to do this, I wanted to record it, to write every detail down. Proof. The park at night is a different world. The lamps are weak sentinels, their glow barely stretching across the paths, leaving pockets of shadow thick as tar. The trees loom like figures, their bare branches grasping at the sky. Every noise feels louder, the scrape of a branch, the rustle of leaves, the faint shifting of something unseen. And there it was. The bench waited at the end of a curve in the path, half lit, half swallowed by dark. It looked no different from the dozen others scattered through the park, and yet it seemed aware. As if the wood itself had been holding its breath for me. I stepped closer. My fingers brushed the backrest, found the marks. 3 deep grooves, jagged at the edges, darker than the rest of the wood as though something still lived in them. My throat felt tight, but I forced myself to sit. The wood was cold, colder than it should have been for the air. My body tensed, listening, waiting for some shift in the world around me. But there was only the faint hum of a lamp, the distant trickle of the park's fountain. My watch read 11:48. 12 minutes until midnight. I opened the notebook, wrote the time, the temperature, my intention. The words steadied me. This was an experiment. A test. Nothing more. 11:53. A gust of wind rattled the leaves across the path behind me. I turned quickly, but there was no wind. The air had gone still. Yet the leaves scattered as though something unseen had passed through them. 11:57. The air grew heavy, not colder, but thick, as if the atmosphere itself pressed closer. My ears popped, like I had climbed a great height. 11:59. My phone screen flickered, then went black. Dead. It had been at 90%. I pressed the button, held it, nothing. Just a dark mirror reflecting my pale face. Midnight. The world seemed to pause. The lamps buzzed louder. The shadows between the trees deepened. And then I heard it, a sound so soft I thought it was inside me at first. Humming. It came from behind me, low and tuneless, halting, as though someone were trying to remember a melody they'd forgotten years ago. The hairs on my neck lifted. I sat frozen, every instinct telling me not to turn. The humming stopped. I let out a shaky breath and glanced over my shoulder. Nothing. The path was empty. The lamps buzzed. The trees swayed in silence. I almost laughed. Almost. But then I saw it. A shadow stretched across the ground in front of me. Long, thin, upright. It reached toward me like a finger. I looked up. There was no one there. The path was empty, the grass bare, the trees skeletal. And yet the shadow remained, solid, undeniable. My chest tightened. I rose from the bench, stumbled backward. The shadow did not move. I whispered, "Hello?" The silence that followed was absolute. The kind of silence where even the night creatures held their breath. And then, close enough that I felt the air stir against my skin, a voice spoke behind me. "Why did you sit?" I spun. Nothing. Only the bench, patient, waiting. My legs shook. I told myself it was a trick of adrenaline, of fear, of imagination. I forced a laugh, thin and breaking. "Guess I'm stupid," I said aloud, though my voice sounded like someone else's. The silence that answered was worse than the voice. A silence that grew, that filled the park like water flooding a room. And then came the footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Dragging. They circled me, invisible, pressing the gravel with weight. Once. Twice. The third time, they stopped directly in front of me. I could see nothing. The path was bare. Yet the sound lingered in my ears, the vibration of something vast and close. And then I saw it, the gouges in the bench, the ones I had traced with my hand. They weren't just marks now. They glistened. Wet. As though freshly carved. I blinked. And when my eyes opened, someone was sitting there. Head bowed. Hair hanging forward in lank strands. Hands clasped between knees. I couldn't breathe. My body was stone. Slowly, it lifted its head. The face was too long, the skin pale and waxy, stretched tight. Its eyes were pits, black and endless, swallowing the lamplight whole. Its mouth split into a grin, but there were no teeth, only darkness. And when it spoke, the voice didn't come from its mouth. It came from inside my skull. "Now you've taken my place." I staggered backward, my boots scraping against the gravel. The figure on the bench never moved, never blinked, but its presence filled the air like a sickness. I felt it in my chest, pressing against my lungs, dragging each breath into something ragged and shallow. I wanted to run. Every fiber of my body screamed to run. But I couldn't. My legs locked in place, trembling but useless. My eyes stayed fixed on that face, that endless grin. The silence between us was unbearable, a taut string waiting to snap. And then it did. The figure leaned forward, only slightly, but enough that the air shifted with it, enough that I swore I heard the old wood creak under its weight. Its hair parted as it moved, revealing more of that face, pale and corpse-like, skin stretched too tight as though it barely belonged to bone. I blinked. And it was gone. The bench was empty. I gasped, stumbled forward, nearly falling to my knees. My chest burned with the force of air rushing in, as though I'd been holding my breath for minutes. I spun in circles, searching the path, the trees, the shadows. Nothing. And then the humming returned. Behind me. I turned. Nothing. Above me. I looked up. Only branches and sky. Inside me. I pressed my hands to my ears, but the sound swelled louder, burrowing into the cracks of my skull. The broken tune looped endlessly, a lullaby rotted into something wrong. I screamed, or tried to. The sound never came. My mouth opened, but the air was thick, unyielding. The lamps flickered. The path twisted. For a heartbeat, I wasn't in the park anymore. I stood in a place without trees, without lamps, without sky. Only endless dark, and a forest of benches stretching in every direction. Some were empty. Most were not. Figures slumped on them, heads bowed, hands folded. Rows and rows of silent prisoners, their faces hidden by hair or shadow. And then one of them lifted its head. It was me. My own eyes, hollow, my own skin drained of color, my mouth slack as though all strength had seeped from it. My double's lips moved, though the voice I heard came from everywhere at once. You sat. Now you stay. I shook my head violently, biting down on my tongue to anchor myself to pain, to reality. The world snapped back. The park. The lamp buzzing. The cold bench before me. But it wasn't empty anymore. This time, there were two. Two figures sat side by side. Both with heads bowed, hands clasped, hair falling forward. They leaned toward one another like old friends whispering. The humming was theirs. My vision tunneled. I forced my legs to move, one step, another. I turned and ran. Branches clawed at me as I tore off the path, plunging into the trees. I didn't care where I went, as long as it was away from that bench. The ground shifted beneath me, soft then hard, earth then gravel, but I didn't slow. I ran until my lungs split fire, until my throat rasped raw. When I broke into a clearing, I collapsed, wheezing. My hands sank into damp soil. My chest heaved. I tasted iron on my tongue. And then I saw it. The bench. Standing alone in the clearing, waiting. I choked out a laugh, wild, broken. The sound of someone who'd lost their way entirely. My mind clawed at logic. It's impossible, it's impossible. And yet, there it was, closer than before, the claw marks glistening wet, the wood hungry. I stumbled backward. My foot struck something. I looked down. A phone. Not mine, older, scratched, its case cracked. The screen lit when I picked it up. For a moment, I thought salvation, I could call, text, something. But the screen didn't show icons. It showed a video. It was playing automatically. I watched the shaky footage. Someone's hands, holding a phone, walking this same park path at night. The camera swung toward the bench. Empty. Midnight glowed on the phone's clock. The person sat down. I felt bile rise in my throat as the footage stuttered, then cut. For less than a second, the camera showed something else, rows of benches in endless dark, figures slumped, still. The video ended. The phone went black. I dropped it and ran again. The path looped endlessly. Every turn brought me back to the same lamp post, the same crooked tree, the same waiting bench. I screamed at it, screamed at the air, begged whatever was listening to let me go. My voice cracked, broke. And then silence. The humming ceased. The air lightened. For a breath, I thought it was over. That's when I heard new footsteps. Not heavy, not dragging, lighter, quicker. Human. I froze, spun toward the sound. And there, down the path, a boy. 17, maybe. Hoodie pulled up, phone in his hand glowing like a fragile lantern. He walked slowly, glancing at the trees, the lamps, as though daring himself. I wanted to shout. To warn him. To tell him to turn back, to run. My lips moved, but the words caught in my throat. My body stiffened. My knees bent. Against my will, I lowered myself onto the bench. The wood groaned beneath me. And suddenly I understood. The figures I had seen slumped on benches in that endless void, they were not phantoms. They were people. People who had sat when the clock struck 12, people who had thought they would prove a story false. And once you sat, truly sat, you never left. My arms lay heavy on my knees. My head bowed. My mouth slackened. My body wasn't mine anymore. But I could see. Through strands of hair that weren't mine, I watched the boy step closer, his phone light trembling across the claw marks in the wood. His eyes widened when he saw me sitting there. He hesitated. My lips moved. The smile stretched, too wide, splitting until there was nothing but black. And the voice that came out wasn't mine. Why don't you sit? That is where the story ends, the circle closing, the curse claiming another.